Rick Pertilly is perfectly willing to share his Sawyer County lakefront property with whomever drops by. On most days, in the quiet of Wisconsin's North Woods, that's an offer eagerly accepted by hungry redpolls, goldfinches, and woodpeckers. But even with guests packed wing bar to wing bar at his 24 feeders, Pertilly graciously insists there's always room for more at the table.
You don't have to have anything fancy to attract the birds. I mean, you know, you can spend a lot of money on feeders, but you can make a lot of feeders a lot cheaper that are just as efficient as far as feeding the birds go. I've got about 3 or 4 of them out there I've made.
The variety of birds that Pertilly attracts to within view of his picture window ranges from chickadees to eagles, a progression of seasonal color and drama built around a core of well-stocked feeding stations.
Depending on what kind of birds you want to draw in, too, depending on what kind of seed you're going to put out. If you could only put one seed out, I would recommend black oil sunflower seed. Everything eats black oil sunflower seed. The big birds do, ground birds do. The hulls are soft enough so the finches and the redpolls can actually crack it. Niger thistle is another big one. It's a little more expensive, so again, the alternative would be the black oil. Cracked corn's a good food, and white proso millet's a good food. Scattered on the ground, you'll get all kinds of sparrows, juncos, indigo buntings like white proso millet if you're trying to attract them too. And sometimes you'll get them, usually in the springtime, I'll have a few of them around here, and they're very, very pretty birds. The goldfinches, the one with the screen over there, you can see they like to cling to that. You get the chickadees that use it a lot. The redpolls now are using it a lot. A lot of times it'll deter the blue jays from eating it because they don't like to hang so much feed like that. They tend to zero in on the hopper feeders or the open platform feeders. So if you're trying to deter them a little bit, because they can be big bullies at the feeder. Everybody knows they fly in, the little birds fly out, and they're the beautiful bullies, but they're going to be around. And again, if you want to put out suet, obviously you're going to attract woodpeckers. You'll get the nuthatches eat it, the chickadees eat it a lot. So in the summertime, sometimes you'll start getting problems with black bear. The feeder's got to come down. You can see I've got a cable system out there. Raccoons can't get to it. Generally, the bears won't get to it. Once in a while, you'll get a smart one that'll grab the cable, he'll snap it. It's a done deal. Everything comes down. I've had that happen several times, and then you have to lay off the feeding, and they generally move on. But I'll put out mealworms, too. You'll get, in the springtime coming through, you'll get warblers coming down a little mealworm tray. I had the bluebird's nest out here last year. I was feeding them waxworms and mealworms. They would come flying down, and I get a lot of different species in the spring with the running water. I've got a ground bird bath. Basically, it attracts the warblers, thrushes, buntings, a lot of birds that you typically won't get at a bird feeder. And a lot of people don't realize that just how big of an attractant water can be, specifically running or dripping water. It draws them like a magnet. This is some video I took of a female wood duck nest.
Pertilly also constructs wood duck and hooded merganser nest boxes, which he disperses across his forest property. With the aid of a camera the size of a deck of playing cards, Pertilly monitors the comings and goings of his many avian tenants.
I've always liked the wood ducks, and I found this camera on the market. I think it was in the back of Birdwatcher's Digest, and I thought I got to have that camera because I've always wondered what goes on inside of that box. And pretty soon here you're going to see a female hooded merganser fly in there. The competition for the nest box sometimes is quite frequent, and the female hooded merganser is going to lay an egg in there. After quite a long tussle, you can see here she comes now. The hooded merganser and the wood duck have very similar habitat requirements, and they're both cavity nesters. What they'll do is a lot of times in an area where there's a lot of ducks that are looking for nest holes, you'll have 2 different species lay in one box. What you saw in the video there was the female wood duck had pretty much finished up her brood. She was just in the beginning stages of incubation. The hen hooded merganser flew in, she deposited an egg, and the wood duck basically pulled the egg under her and ended up hatching it with the rest of her original clutch and left with both species of chicks. That happens quite often where you'll have 2 of them nest in the same box. The original, like I say, the original and that hen that initiated the nest is usually the one that ends up incubating the eggs and brooding the chicks and taking them out.
Captured here on Pertilly's home video, the hen wood duck, after carefully scouting the vicinity of the nest box, leads her brood, including 3 hooded merganser chicks, up and out of the box.
Which one's the Hooter-Mergander?
Right there. You'll see there.
This guy.
Coming up
Oh,
right
right
now.
here.
Yep.
That's the Hooter-Mergander.
Another Hooter-Mergander.
Okay, sure.
There was 3 total in there.
The last duckling, perhaps the last to hatch, has more difficulty than his nestmates, failing to identify the one side of the box lined with hardware cloth. Encouraged by his mother calling faithfully below, he eventually catches on by perseverance or blind luck, clambering to the nest box opening and leaping to the assembled clan below.
Maybe a third of them are going to survive to adulthood. Snapping turtles take a big toll on them. They're as soon as they're out within the first week, it's rough for them. A lot of them get picked off right away. A lot of hawks eat them. I mean, blue herons will take them. There's a lot of different predators out there that feed on those little ducks. And generally, after they leave the nest boxes here, the mother takes them into a different brooding site, which is, away from people. They'll tolerate the nesting part of it, but once the chicks hatch out, they generally take them off the property and they go to places unknown because I rarely see them throughout the summer around in the pond.
Next, a home building project for the birds.
Here's a typical wood duck box. There's all different designs for these. Basically, this one is got a side entrance for cleaning. You can see the actual screen ladder in there that you need to put in there for the ducklings to be able to climb out. This is rough one-sided cedar. You put that on the outside. The inside is smooth, so they won't be able to get a toe hold on there to climb out. If you don't put that in there, odds are they're going to be trapped in there and they're not going to be able to get out. So you want to make sure and put some kind of a mesh screen on the inside that's going to be strong enough that they can climb up and get out of there. And then you also need to put 3 to 4 inches of wood shavings, preferably, in on the bottom. Try to avoid using sawdust. It tends to collect moisture more, and it doesn't. It's not as good for the eggs, I guess. What I do basically, I've got these scattered throughout the property. I've got about, I believe, 28 of them. I place them anywhere from 6 feet up to, I've got, I think my highest one is 27 feet up. Every year that one has been used. They tend to prefer the higher ones, but keep safety in mind. Don't go higher than you feel comfortable. A few years ago, I actually did a study for Cornell University in New York, and basically it was monitoring how many eggs were laid, if more than one species was laying, the date of the first egg, laid, last egg laid, how many hatched, how many were left, brood parasitism. It was a pretty intense study. It was kind of fun. So I've kind of just made it a hobby, but yet it's almost gotten to be an obsession because I've got about 28 boxes here, but a lot of them get used. I think last year there was, like I say, 21 of them used, I believe.
Pertilly is currently experimenting with nest box designs for great-crested flycatchers, a robin-sized cavity nester that he'd like to encourage to move in next door.
You don't commonly see people actually putting these boxes out, but I got this design from a book called Woodworking for Wildlife, which is a really good book. What I'm going to do is you want to make sure you have a side opening entrance or on any of your boxes to clean them out every year to make sure there's no blowworm or blowfly larvae or any fleas sometimes you'll actually get in the boxes too and stuff. You just want to make sure they're nice and tidy. I'm going to put this up generally at about probably 15 to 20 feet on a pole. The unique thing about their nest is they tend to line it with snake skins.
With all the work Pertilly devotes to attracting birds to his yard, he's received no formal recognition from those who partake. No pleases or thank yous. The rewards are always more subtle than they are concrete. The gifts transitory but satisfying. It is good, he says, to provide for wildlife, and it is good to receive.
Generally, I would say I probably go through the mixture of all the different kinds of foods, probably about 50 pounds a week, generally. It would probably be even a little bit more if I was here all week, because generally what happens is when I come up on the following weekend, all the feeders pretty much, most of the feeders, if not all of them, are emptied. As far as the price tag goes, I started keeping track, I think, one year, and by the time I hit November, I was up to several $100s, so I just kind of quit keeping track because I wasn't sure I wanted to know exactly how much I was spending on the birds. So, but it's a hobby that I really enjoy, and hey, you got it, you know, you're going to spend your money on something, spend it on something you like to enjoy to do, so.
To contact Rick Fertilli about wood duck nesting box construction, try his email, mugsy1960@msn.com.